Welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast, our weekly catch-up with Dunstable Town manager Steve O'Reilly. Steve, just over a week into the season now, mate. How are we assessing what's gone on in the two games so far?
Well, I'd like some more points. Look, from that perspective, disappointing that we've lost the two games. Look, I'd be sat here, and if we'd have won both games, I'd probably say to you that there's been good points and there's been areas that we need to focus on and improve upon. So that doesn't change by the fact of the results. But I'm not going to hide from the fact we had expected and wanted to have picked up some results in these first two games. We haven't, and so look, it brings a sense of urgency in terms of putting that right. And we'll want to start that on Saturday. But then there's no panic. We're 2 games into the season. 2 games in for this new group. There's some experience that these lads have picked up in these first couple of games that will prove valuable. But ultimately, we want to win games of football. So the reflection on that will be disappointed with the results. But we've learned a lot from the 2 games. We've acknowledged there's some areas that we've got to address. So there's different ways that we'll go about doing that. We'll look forward and we're positive going into our session tonight and the game on Saturday.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my next questions. It's like we're saying, obviously we want to win games of football. We all know that. But are you learning a little bit more in the defeats? Because we had I think halfway through, not last season before, we went on a great run. We were 9 games unbeaten. We beat Leighton here at Creasy Park, and all of us fans and players all got a little bit ahead of ourselves, and the season ended up petering out. Is there still learning curves in defeats? Like you say, you probably watched the games back 1,000 times. We're training here tonight at Creasy Park. Are you learning a lot from the defeats? Because it's all well and good sitting there going, yep, we won 2 or 3-0 and everyone's happy. Yeah. But, are you learning as much from defeat as you would from victory?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's easier to learn from defeat because you don't the result doesn't mask, the problems that you might have. So, there could be a temptation, if we'd have picked up positive results in these first 2 games, and our performances haven't suggested that we definitely deserve to lose both games in the general play, in the key moments we have. But if you'd have won them both or picked up some more points, you could have a temptation to just go, oh, this is all right, actually, everything's going smoothly. It wouldn't be the case. We wouldn't operate in that way anyway. But, losing games of football is something that we don't want to do. So, naturally it sharpens your focus on the areas that you need to address. And, So from my perspective, yeah, definitely we've learned a lot from these 2 games. And the lads will have learned as well. They will have realised that they're 90-minute games, and it's not like we've conceded late goals as such, but it's 90 minutes where you've got to concentrate for 90 plus minutes nowadays. So that's what certainly the players will have learned. We've learned, like I say, that there's maybe a couple of kind of characteristics in terms of what we need in the squad and kind of qualities that we need to add to the squad that maybe we just don't quite have yet, or that we're not seeing consistently enough. So those are things that we'll look to address. But I go back to it. We're probably 8 weeks into, not even 8 weeks with this group. So we're always learning, and that'll continue all the way through. We just need to learn some of the really important lessons that cost you points and cost you games. We need to learn those much quicker.
How do we go about putting a 90-minute game together? I see it's easy for me to sit here and say and do it. Obviously, the lads have to go out. But if you look at last Saturday's league game, played well for 60, 70 minutes of it. Winslow away, first half, we were in the game. Your team talk at half time was like, look, hey, we're well in the game. We could end up kicking ourselves here if we don't get something out of it. Again, I mentioned to you when I was with you on Tuesday night, is that something that you don't personally probably coach that? How do you get to that point where we try and get a 90-minute game out of these lads and say, hey, look, it's there. It's just how do we put that together?
So I think that, there's a couple of things like, there's one which is just keep on reinforcing the messages. And, it is for these lads, some of them, it is their first experience of the level. So, they will just start to develop those skills by being here and playing here and learning the lessons, and they're painful lessons like they were on Tuesday night. I think there's an aspect of it, and, there's players in the group that I've spoken to since Tuesday that it maybe needs a little bit more ownership from some of the players on the pitch in terms of managing the team around them and the players around them, those lads who do have a little bit more experience. Now, that's not to say that they haven't been doing that or trying to do that in the games so far, but, it feels like there's probably a little bit too much that's needed from us on the sideline at the moment in terms of kind of keeping that focus, certainly stuff when the ball goes dead and things like that, and making sure that we're switched on in that sense. My preference is that that's coming from the players on the pitch and that communication is happening with them on the pitch. So, keeping them informed in terms of the types of situations they need to be focused on, making sure that we try and get that leadership on the pitch. But really, it's just reinforcement of the messages. stuff doesn't always sink in straight away. And for some of these lads, it's just the nature of football at this level. We just need to try and do everything a little bit more consistently. So I thought there was some improvement on Tuesday night. Our first 45 minutes Tuesday night was the best 45 minutes of the 4 that we've played so far. So that was a big positive. Just the second 45, I say, little moments we switched off, and we just didn't quite have the skill just to turn the momentum in that game the other night. But look, I don't think it's as simple as maybe just one thing. I think it's, one, giving the lads a little bit of experience, 2, just kind of reinforcing the messages, and 3, as I said, maybe there's a few players on the pitch that we maybe look for a little bit more from now in terms of managing the players that are around them.
Like you say, you make a great point. We're 8 weeks in to a process with a new manager, a new coaching team, new players, new everything really. How long do you give a process? Because I was chatting to a few of the lads after the game on Tuesday. How long do we give it till they get used to the style of play that you want to play? And how long do you kind of give it till you have to see something back on the pitch? How do you find that balance? It's difficult at any level of football, but we're not Man City. We're not training every single day. We're here on a Thursday night. We've got to travel 2.5 hours on a Saturday, and then we're not back to the following Thursday. How do you find that balance?
Yeah, there's not a defined time in my head that I go, look, if this person's not doing this at this point, then we need to make a change. There'll be a feeling, and we'll review it, and we'll go, okay, maybe that person's not quite grasping what we need them to do. And it might be that the result of that is actually just something more focused in terms of our training and dedicated to that. Or, as you know, we probably will do over the next couple of weeks, there'll be players who we can bring in who maybe can do that from the off. And that's, I'm really clear to say that's not a detriment to the boys that we've brought in so far. And it's the opposite, really. It's just a real acknowledgement that, potentially with a little bit more youth kind of brings a little bit more inconsistency, and that learning curve is maybe a little bit steeper. Doesn't mean they're not going to be really good players for us and going forward. That's definitely the case. But there might be a requirement for us to maybe have some lads who've played the level a little bit more, to kind of nurture and bring those lads along. So, like I said, there's not really a defined time, but I want us to win football matches. So, Saturday we'll make a couple of adjustments for Saturday that I feel that we'll need to make, and then we go into some important league games that we might do similar on. So, yeah, look, there's not necessarily the answer to that. There's not a defined moment that I'll say, right, okay, you're not doing it, we've got to go and do something completely different, because I'm really clear about what I want us to be. But it might be that we make an assessment that goes, okay, maybe it's just not quite the right time for a certain player at a certain moment in time, and maybe we just have to look to tweak that.
I think there's been loads of positives since we've started our league. I know we're obviously only 2 games into our league campaign. I think there's been plenty of positives. How, when you do lose 2 games, is it sometimes a bit difficult to sometimes focus on the point? Because football, everyone's judged on results. It's like Dunstable Town lost. But I think, like I said to you a minute ago, we played well on Saturday for the first half for 60, 70 minutes. Is it important as well to focus on a lot of the positive? Because I've seen plenty of positives out from this young Dunstable Town team, and a lot of the players they are playing the level for the first time. And us as fans and you as coaches, sometimes it's very hard sometimes to take a step back and realise that this is their first. Some of these lads are playing step 5 football for the first time. But I think there's been some really positives from what I've seen from the first 2 league games and what I see all the time at training. I think how important is it that we just keep drumming that into lads? Because as young lads, it's like you've been a young player. You sometimes might get downhearted. We played 2, we lost 2, but there is a lot of positives to take from these games.
It's a little while since I was a young player.
I didn't want to
young
say
player
it.
for a
I didn't
while.
want to say, mate.
No, look, there absolutely are, and I don't think it's disappointing when you lose games of football, and that immediate aftermath, it never changes. Anyone who's been involved in football, when you've lost the game, those minutes after the game are they're really tough and they're really difficult, and that immediate kind of hour or 2, and you're kind of reflecting on everything kind of really deeply, and naturally you're attracted to the things that didn't go so well. But then I don't think there's been a real negative feel about the place, and the kind of a real doom scenario. I think is a realisation
2 games
of 2 games, and that people can see that there are positives. I think on reflection, the thing that I think probably more than anything is I just don't think we've kind of pressed hard enough at the skills that we have got at the moment. I think that we can be a really good footballing team, and we can trust ourselves. And it will sound ridiculous to certain people, but the 5 minutes after we conceded the first goal on Tuesday night was the best 5 minutes of football we played so far. And again, 5 minutes doesn't get you enough in this level of football, but we moved the ball at a tempo, we played with confidence, we played with bravery, we created some really big opportunities in that period where, if we'd have taken them, that whole momentum of that game changed a little bit on Tuesday night. And what I really want to kind of drill home with the boys on that basis was that was our identity of who we should be as a team. We were aggressive, we were on the front foot. And I think that those are the positives that we can see that what we can be. It's just marrying that, as I said, with consistency and not just making silly mistakes that shoot you in the foot. Again, I said to you after the game on Tuesday night, I would be much, much more concerned if I felt that teams were carving us open at will, just being able to just play through us and create an opportunity.
2-1 and a 2-0,
create an opportunity. And the manner of the goals we conceded, they're the frustration because they've been poor goals in terms of concentration more than anything, but they've not been kind of as a result of kind of big shape deficiencies or kind of really big weaknesses in certain positions. It's just individuals kind of switching off on a couple of occasions. So those aspects are positive that we can look at, that we can go, right, okay, we can build on, some of the really good parts that we do. But as I said, it really is just a fact of trying to be better and more consistent and really trying to stick to the things that we're good at.
FA Cup this weekend, Steve. What does the FA Cup mean to you when you were a player and now as a manager? We said on Tuesday briefly, we know what the FA Cup means to a non-league club financially. I mean, Matt's standing down there, he probably is pricking up. just the mention of getting through a few rounds. I was joking with my mate at work today, said we're getting Tottenham away in the third round. But all joking aside, what does the FA Cup mean to you personally, when you played and now as a manager at Dunstable Town?
Yeah, personally, it means a lot. I think that, they're always great occasions. And I think that, it's one of those things that, certain people outside of the world of football don't necessarily kind of understand stuff when you say, you're a semi-professional team or you play at step 5 of the pyramid and stuff. They maybe don't quite get that. But as soon as you say the FA Cup, they go, oh, it's the FA Cup, right? So it kind of, it's a real benchmark in terms of shows kind of that we do play at a good level of football here. And I think that, it should be a real sense of pride for people. And certainly from my perspective, I'll be proud on Saturday leading the team out in the FA Cup. So, I've played in it. I've actually managed to score in it, which is quite funny as well, quite a few years ago. So, so I think that it's a really proud moment, and I just really hope that these lads, like I say, embrace that and they look at that and they go, "This is a fantastic opportunity to play for Dunstable Town in the FA Cup is a good honour."
Just finally, Steve, what's the message going into the lads tonight at training? Obviously, they're a positive bunch of guys. They're all the younger, and like I was chatting to people today, and me and a few fans, we've been texting backwards and forwards. It's 2 games of football.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's literally zero panic from anyone. I mean, plenty of teams are going to lose 2 games of football throughout the season. What's the message as we move forward?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, actually, because I think that it's only because it's the first 2 games of the season that...
If this was halfway through the season and we'd been like 18 games in and we'd suddenly lost 2 on a bounce...
It doesn't really blink, right? So that's part of it. And also just, helping the lads to understand that there's no panic, there's no crisis about this. It's understandably disappointing. I don't want them to get complacent with it and go, well, actually, it doesn't matter if we lose games of football, because it does. None of us are putting in this effort, not just us as the coaches or the players, but everyone at the club. We're all doing this because we want to be successful here. So, the players need to recognise that. But it's something to enjoy. Playing football is something to enjoy. And I think that if we lose that, and with this group, they say they're a young group, but they're here, to enjoy it and to develop. If we lose that sense of that, then we're kind of like putting ourselves under more pressure, and we kind of, that negativity kind of builds at that point. So look, we'll be positive. I think what we do is we look forward. Our job as the coaching staff is to identify the areas that we have to improve. We'll look at doing some of those tonight. Again, you can't do everything. We've, like you say, you've got 2 hours of training, and you can't try and solve every problem in one go. You kind of have to do things incrementally. But our job's to try and identify those, but in a way that the lads enjoy, that they feel they're engaged in, that they feel they get value from, and that we set ourselves up positively to go into Saturday's game. And I think, as I said, you don't need to try and help lads get up for Saturday's game. That's going to be natural. We just have to make sure we prepare the team in the right way today.
Just finishing up, a little funny note, mate. I've heard the word initiations are flying around. We're on a coach trip on Saturday. Have you got your initiation song ready, mate?
I will have an initiation song. Yeah, no problem about that. It might depend if how the result goes. It might change. It might be upbeat, or it might be a little bit more sad. But I've got a couple of songs lined up for that. I think the lads have got a few ideas about what we might be doing on Saturday, so that could be quite fun.
Steve, pleasure as always, mate. Good luck on Saturday, and I'll catch you then. This has been the Talk of the Town podcast. Check us out on Twitter at DTFCPod. Till next time, up the Mighty Blues.